Hey vinyl community, Mark here again from Sound Masters, and today's topic is why are vinyl records so expensive and will the prices ever come down? We'll discuss some of the reasons behind why the format is so expensive, and then we'll try to determine some sort of maybe, hopefully, optimism as to whether or not it is possible for the prices to come down to more reasonable levels to enable more people to enjoy records. And then after that, I want to hear from you, as always, what your views on this topic are. What could be done to help reduce the cost of vinyl records? What does the industry need to focus on? This is your forum to share your views about this topic and to share the community, share the vibe across the vinyl community. So without further ado, let's get straight into this topic. So this is a topic that I've covered over at the website. You can check it out, link in the description below as per normal. But the crux of it is that consumer demand for records just continues to grow year on year. This is something we've witnessed for the last 10 years or so. And in fact, the sales figures for last year are once again up on the previous year. Those came in for the end of 2022. The total units sold in the US capped out at 43.5 million records, up 4.2% from 41.7 million in 2021, which is according to a specific report, which I will also drop as a link in the description below. But don't you just think it's remarkable that considering that the average cost of an LP is somewhere between sort of $30 and $40, that we still continue to see this growth, even though that we're entering kind of recession times and life is a little tighter than normal, we're still seeing year on year growth. 4.2% is pretty significant. It's not actually as extreme as we saw from 2020 to 2021, but we were living in exceptional times during those years and people were at home a lot more, and it's understandable why there was a big surge in record sales during that time. Slightly different times now, different economic circumstances, but we're still seeing growth despite the huge cost and rising cost of the hobby. But why are records so expensive? Let's get into those reasons now, and we'll try and put some sense around it and just kind of get down to a lot of it really is about kind of supply and demand, but there are various other situations that come into it too. Let's get into those reasons. Reason number one, and perhaps the most significant one of all, is just simple supply and demand combined with a lack of production facilities or bottlenecks in the production process. It's a no-brainer that if demand continues to go up and the production facilities are not adequate, then we're going to see a rise in the price of the product. That is just how basic economics works. Now, it is interesting though that according to a database that you can check out over at the article here that I've linked to, there are currently just over 360 known companies that are involved in pressing, cutting, or general manufacturing process of making records. So very few pressing plants worldwide have the capacity to handle very large record runs, and it's a known fact that typical lead times for production can be anywhere up to 9 months from start to completion. Now, this has led a lot of people to take matters into their own hands. I did a little video a little while back about obviously Jack White and his kind of message to the major labels about how he believes it's time for them to open up their own pressing plants once again, so that reduces the strain on the existing production facilities so that smaller independent artists and labels can have a chance of getting through. That would take so much strain off of the entire situation. Of course, Jack White has put his money where his mouth is and has his own facility with third man pressing. And it's not just Jack White. We've also seen recently VMP, the subscription service, announce that they are going to take matters into their own hand and start up their own production facilities as well. So there's hope there in that things are starting to change. We are starting to see new pressing facilities come through, but the fact of the matter at the moment is that the demand is incredibly high and we are still seeing major production bottlenecks and long lead times for record production, leading naturally to higher prices. Next up are supply chain issues. Now, of course, recent events over the last few years haven't exactly helped to curtail the potential supply chain issues, but perhaps one of the most significant events that happened over recent years was the huge fire that ripped through the Apollo Transco lacquer production facility, which left just one company worldwide that could produce the essential lacquers, those master discs used by mastering engineers to cut the master recording that's obviously eventually used further down in the production facility to create the stamper. It left just one company that could produce these essential components as part of the production process. And of course, naturally, that's going to create shortages, at least in the short term, until the industry could find ways to recover. But it did have a positive impact in that it forced people to look at alternative production techniques as well. One such alternative technique is direct metal mastering, which was developed by Neumann and Teldec. So instead of engraving onto a soft lacquer plated aluminium disc with direct metal mastering, the audio is engraved directly onto a copper plated metal disc instead. So directly to a metal disc. Now, a lot of critics have said that they criticize it as being inferior to lacquer master discs, but at the industry's time of need, these alternative approaches had to be explored. Also related to the supply chain side of things, of course, is just the rising cost of, well, almost everything, namely fuel. If you increase the cost of moving goods around, then it's inevitably going to have a knock-on impact on the price of consumer goods. Vinyl records are no different. I've spoken to people within the industry about how this has directly affected their work day to day. Namely, I spoke to Barry Grint, who is the major owner of the mastering house at Air Studios called Alchemy Mastering at Air, and he said in a conversation to me that the biggest effect on pricing for mastering is the increase in courier costs. The bought cost for lacquers has increased because of the increased freight charges, and the shipping of lacquers has also nearly trebled. He also did mention, though, that he believes that record labels are also producing more premium products. So in his words, he said, I think labels are also delivering better value products, whether it be half-speed cuts, heavyweight vinyl, or premium booklets and packaging. There are some much cheaper reissues, but they often have poor quality audio and or packaging. Now, this is a really good point, and considering that vinyl is not a necessity, you can stream music you can get access to music for almost nothing with a streaming service, so it makes sense that the vinyl industry should focus on quality and premium releases if it's going to have that niche appeal and survive in the digital world. Next up, let's address the elephant in the room, and that is, of course, Record Store Day. Now, this will divide opinions, but I think there are pros and cons to this event overall. It does shine a positive light on independent record stores and the vinyl format as a whole, but understandably, a lot of pundits have placed some degree of blame for the issues that we have on the event itself. Now, I think the reason behind this really is that major labels have really muscled in on the event, reissuing a lot of their back catalogue and, of course, adding fuel to the fire in terms of the already strained production facilities that we have. This makes it very difficult for independent artists and independent labels to truly, in a meaningful way, get in on the event. And of course, naturally, because we're cramming up the production facilities with all of this sort of back catalogue legacy stuff, then that adds to longer lead times, higher prices, less consumer choice, particularly for new music, and ultimately perhaps some dissatisfied customers in terms of access to that fresh new stuff on vinyl. At this point in the video, you might be asking yourself, well, what about used vinyl records? And this is a completely different kettle of fish. Sadly, gone are the days of bargain basement prices in charity shops, thrift stores, all that kind of side of things. You're not going to find those first pressings for absolute peanuts in terms of the prices anymore, unless you're incredibly lucky and come across the owner of one of these shops or stores that is completely naive and has been living under a rock for the last 10 years. They're increasingly more aware of the value of records, the popularity of vinyl, the vinyl resurgence, if you want to use that phrase. They're increasingly more aware of that. They're using tools like Discogs to make a better assessment of what those records are actually worth. But you are, of course, as well seeing overpriced records from people who are very naive to the actual condition and value of the records themselves. They've just heard that vinyl is popular again, so therefore we can charge a lot of money for those records. Now, those individuals, you've got to be very careful. You've got to understand the value of records, understand how grading systems work, like the gold mine standard, of course, which we talked about on this channel before. A lot of these stores do not understand this. They've just heard that vinyl is popular again, and to be perfectly frank, they're kind of trying it on. So a lot of that kind of comes down to you, I think, in terms of understanding the value of records, doing your research, using tools like Discogs, understanding the gold mine standard, and making a judgment for yourself and voting with your feet. But yes, undoubtedly, used records have skyrocketed in price as well. So what's the bottom line here? Well, the ever-rising cost of vinyl records is a multifaceted problem. Any market where supply can't meet demand will inevitably see higher prices at the cash register. Supply chain issues, corporate behaviour and world events naturally compound the issue, but many of these problems can be fixed by increasing production capacity. We are seeing growth in production facilities, which is great news, but with the increase in demand showing no signs of stopping, it will be some time yet before capacity reaches a point where competition leads to falling prices. Vinyl remains a niche interest, albeit with impressive growth. For this growth to sustain, there is no doubt the price needs to come down. Under the right set of circumstances, digital streaming and physical music formats can offer us the best of both worlds. Arguably, the growing popularity of vinyl owes much of its success to its unique position as an antidote to increased digitization. Like yin and yang, there's much to be said for one needing the other in the pursuit of balance. So that concludes today's topic, and it's now over to you. What do you think needs to happen to help reduce the cost of records overall? This is your opportunity to voice what the industry needs to do. Let us know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. And if you are new to this channel, please do consider subscribing. I'd love to have you on board, and we will see you in that next one. Keep spinning.